Welcome back. We're looking at segment 5 on chapter 4, and we're going to talk for a few minutes about rental price ceilings. We've talked about in the last segment about the price floor, what the price floor, the impact is. You're talking about setting a minimum price that's allowed to be paid for. And we talked about the minimum wage, so your wage rate. Also, we talked about agricultural products, and by setting that floor, it actually increases the price that you see at the grocery store. And then you turn around and you also have to pay for supporting these services through taxes. But at the same time, I can understand the rationale behind the price floors. Grew up on a farm, understand the subsidy programs. We were involved in the subsidy programs, especially we operated a dairy farm. So we were involved with the subsidy programs to keep the price of milk up. And it was a great program because not only did it help keep the price of milk up, but to participate in those programs, you had to actually agree to sell off a certain number of your animals every year just to participate in the program. So it worked to some extent to keep the price of milk up. Maybe on a consumer's basis, it wasn't the greatest thing for all consumers because the price of milk stayed higher than they would have liked to have seen it. And then they were also paying for this when it came to tax time. And you're going to run into the same thing on the rental price ceiling. So floor sets the minimum allowable price that you can. The ceiling sets the maximum allowable price. So, and as I mentioned before, the price ceiling is typically below the market price. When we talked about the price floor, it needed to be above the equilibrium price. Price ceiling is going to be down here below the equilibrium price, and it has to be that way or it won't work efficiently. And the rationale for government, especially in rental price ceiling, is that it helps provide affordable housing for an impoverished population, an impoverished subpopulation. And I'm not sure, since it's not a program in Georgia, and I'm almost certain it's not a program in the state of Tennessee, I haven't been involved in kind of the rental ceiling since I worked in DC several years ago. And it was based on, I had some individuals that worked for me, and they were able to get subsidized housing basically in the rental price ceiling. And they had to meet certain income levels, and they had to live in certain zip codes. At least that's where it was set up in DC years ago. And I'm assuming it's still set up that same way. So you see these rental price ceilings in DC and especially in New York City, where they have these rent controlled apartments. And basically that's what they're saying. They're trying to make necessities affordable, and housing is viewed as a necessity, and the government is trying through these ceilings, trying to make it affordable. And let's say the rental price is in the free market's $1,000, that's your equilibrium price. With a rent control, they may set that at $500 or $750, and they set it below the equilibrium price. So what it does is when you've got it that low, everybody wants one of those rental properties. And so you're going to have a shortage, because what happens is the demand curve starts to shift out, because everybody now is saying, well, what you usually find is you've got individuals that may not want to live in their parents' basement anymore. You've got individuals that were thinking about buying a house, and now it's cheaper to rent than buy a house. Or you've got individuals that have thought about sharing with roommates, and now with price controlled rents, they can get out there and they can get into the rental market, and it provides them with affordable living. What we saw in DC, at least when I was there the last time, is you would have individuals that would buy a house. Let's say they bought a 5-bedroom house. They would live in the master bedroom and they would rent the other 4 bedrooms out, and they use that to subsidize, or they use that to sublease and help subsidize their mortgage. what you run into is the black market on these rental houses or these price ceiling, these rent controlled areas. As you start getting into the black market area again, it's government intervention. Entrepreneurs are going to figure out how to work around the government parameters. And so you'll have people start the sublease. You'll have individuals that charge excessive amounts just to make you a key to get into your apartment. There's a lot of opportunities to work around when you're talking about rental price ceilings, when you're talking about rent control opportunities, and mostly it's a local phenomenon. And what typically happens is people move into these apartments and in these certain zip codes and these areas that are designated rent control areas. And once they move into the apartment and those rent control ceilings are set, they don't want to leave. So the individuals that may need those apartments can't get into them because the demand's there, but the supply's not, and it's a shortage. So, it's a shortage. Demand goes up, supply goes down. We all know what that does to market rates, but because of these rent controlled areas, it's not going to impact pricing like we thought it would. And again, it opens it up to black markets, opens it up to individuals that are going to circumvent the system, and it doesn't necessarily provide affordable housing to everybody that needs that affordable housing. So the government, it's an inefficient process. The government is trying to provide affordable housing for individuals that need it, but just the way the whole process, the shortage, the price controls, there's not enough way to alleviate that shortage at that lower price. So what would be maybe more efficient is for the government just to subsidize the income of those needy individuals. Forget about the rent controls, let the free market drive the price of rental housing, let it come to its own equilibrium, let that invisible hand drive it to its equilibrium, and then subsidize the incomes of needy individuals through SNAP programs, through, as I talked about before, the EBT process. And they can use that money to buy food and other necessities, and they can shift their disposable income and help pay for some of the cost of renting apartments. That's going to, again, tie things up for rentals, for price ceilings, price floors. In a few minutes, we're going to get into the sixth segment of chapter 4. We're going to talk a few minutes about taxes, something that I'm sure that's near and dear to all of us. But you can see that government intervention in a floor and a ceiling, in a price floor and a ceiling, is somewhat inefficient. We're going to also look at how taxes, especially an excise tax, is not the most efficient way to impact the equilibrium price in a free market. That's going to wrap it up for this fifth segment, and we'll be back again in a few minutes to tie things together with the sixth segment. Talk to you later. Thank you.